record.
And we are recording.
We are rolling. Can you do the...
Oh, fuck, hold on.
Oh, dear. Well, I'm rolling.
Testing. Test. Oh, shit. Okay, I don't know what's going on with my audio here, but it's way quieter than it was. Yo, 2 secs.
Do you remember that time 5 minutes ago when you said that your setup was a lot more efficient than mine?
I mean, it was so, like, I haven't really touched this in a while, but I tested it once, and like, that's fine. I did the exact same thing again. What I think happened was I was playing with one of these dials without realizing, and then that fucked something.
Welcome to the show with me, Dan, and my guest, back again, Mr. Nick Twigger. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm not bad, man. How you doing?
I'm doing very good, thank you. It's good to chat to you again. Good to be doing this with you again.
Likewise, been I think over a year since we last spoke.
Yes, yeah. Lots has happened. Lots has changed. But what hasn't changed is that we're still slogging away at this political compass quiz. I think it's literally been nearly 2 years we've been at this, like this quiz.
It's really the gift that keeps on giving. Like, I think we're near the end, and then it's like, hey, wait a minute, there's a whole other page to this.
So, for anyone listening to this, I'm sure all three of you would have listened to the previous ones. I mean, I don't know why you would go into the political compass quiz part 15 or whatever this is now, but yes, anyone who not aware of what we're doing, this is an ongoing thing in this podcast I've been doing with Nick, where our first episode on the political compass quiz was we basically said where we were. So the political compass quiz is an online quiz. You can go and do it yourself, and you answer a load of questions. It's 63 questions, and you put disagree, strongly disagree, agree, strongly agree. So, for example, other questions we've had in the past are, when you are troubled, it's better not to think about it, but to keep busy with more cheerful things, and then you'd answer. So, and then there's more sort of like broad society questions about the economy and stuff. And then at the end, once you've answered all the questions, it will tell you where you fall, sort of left wing, right wing, authoritarian, libertarian, on this political compass quiz. And me and Nick were actually pretty close, but we had a few differences and the overall score. So we thought it would be enjoyable for us, at least, to just go into this quiz question by question and just chat about it. And even though it may not have been enjoyable for any listeners, I've enjoyed it thoroughly. I think
it's a lot of fun.
Yes, yeah. So we're going to do it. This is what we're doing. You can switch off now if it's not your thing. Keep listening if you like a bit of politics and a little bit of a laugh. Cool. Speaking of having a laugh, let's go with the first statement, shall we? Question 49. Mothers may have careers, but their first duty is to be homemakers.
So I find this question really odd. I'm probably going to be strongly disagree. And my rationale for that is like, from what I understand, like women do have a much more like maternal instinct to look over kids, as like not every woman, but generally speaking. But my issue with this is it's like telling someone else what they have to do based on what chromosome setup they've got. So for me, it's like, you can have a career, you can be a homemaker. I don't give a fuck. You do you. I don't give a shit.
Yeah, it's funny when a statement sounds like it's been like put out in a 1950s broadcast of like, mothers may have careers, but their first duty is to be homemakers. Buy Jif today.
Yeah, that's exactly. And here's the thing, like, I totally understand that a lot of women want to be homemakers, and that's cool. If you want to raise a family and you just want to be a stay-at-home mom, I've got a lot of respect for that. That's what humans have done for a long time. If you want to do that, you do that. At the same time, if you want to be professional rugby player, professional footballer, or some other shit, and you just want to go ham at your career, fucking do that. Like, you do you.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I completely agree. I mean, yeah, there's not really much. Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. Not that I agree with the comment. Yeah, I think it's a strong disagree. Mothers may have careers, but their first duty. But I think it's that sort of like black and white of like their first duty. You as a mother, this is your first duty, and that is how it is, type thing. Yeah, and I think that's just yeah, it's just not the case. Like you say, a lot can be said about mothers having a more caring instinct than men, women having a more caring instinct than men in general. Not obviously every individual, everyone's different, but it just that's not really part of this question. I don't think part of this statement.
Yeah, I would agree. For me, this is just like dictating to others. If someone has a child, what they have to do.
Mm,
Um, don't get me wrong. Both parents should always spend a lot of time with their kids, raising them, teaching them good life lessons, all that shit that I'm not a parent, so I don't actually know anything about. But if you want to be have a studying career and have a child, I'm sure that's possible too.
for sure. Female power. Cool. Okay.
Sure.
Well, that was easy. Okay. Question number 50. Multinational companies are unethically exploiting the plant genetic resources of developing countries. Multinational companies are unethically exploiting. Is there a way to ethically exploit? Did they feel the need to write unethically exploiting? But there you go. Unethically exploiting. So that's really, really bad exploiting. The plant genetic resources of developing countries. This is quite a factual statement, isn't it?
Yeah, but I feel like there's a lot of nuance to this. I'm pretty sure, we get a lot of like cocoa, from, like chocolate and coffee beans from developing nations.
Mm.
But I don't really, and I've referenced that because that's what I've looked into in the past. When I've looked into that, it's not like they're exploiting it. It's just like a trade, right? And
Mm.
are those people getting paid less than you would trade someone in the West? Yeah, definitely. Because not necessarily because their standard of living is better, but just because the country is less wealthy, have less money. The people are willing to work for less money because they can do a lot with that money in their civilization that they have there. Like for me, this is yes and no because we're definitely doing that in I constantly read stories about people digging up the rainforest and shit. So that's not good. But at the same time, I'm not too sure if that's what this is saying because this is saying they've got a unique plant there that you're then unethically exploiting and I guess taking for your own gain while fucking them over. But with the coffee bean and the cocoa bean, it's kind of like fair game, right? It's an agreement of trade between multiple parties, and that's how it does. And that then brings in extra revenue and trade for the country as a whole.
Yeah, I think as well. I don't know if you know about this, but have you heard of the company?
No.
So they're sort of like in a sort of environmental and international development sectors. They're sort of considered like the evil corporation of the world.
They're like Nestle.
Probably worse. So they. My understanding, it's been a while since I've read about them, but my understanding is that they sold a lot of seed. They sold a lot of seeds to low income communities, and they were selling them at a much lower rate than the normal sort of organic seeds that have been grown. And the company, it basically they knew they've done loads of stuff over the years. I'm gonna have to be really careful because I think I'm just thinking about this. I don't even know if I've got the company name correct. Forget that. There have been companies. There have been companies that have knowingly sold seeds very cheap that degrade the soil over time and makes them dependent on the seeds the way that they're set up. And over time, basically, a very fruitful plot of land becomes just absolutely arid, and you can't grow anything on it anymore.
Well, wait, but is that is that directly from the seed, or is that just from growing a single crop on the same patch of dirt over and over and over again, so it drains all of its nutrients and shit?
No, because the people they're selling them to have grown stuff on that land for generations. It's like they know what it's like. But then the companies some companies come in, huge companies come in and basically almost force this seed on the communities. And I think there's a lot of force aspect to it in terms of like making it very difficult to buy these other seeds and sort of going into communities. I think they were actually giving them out for free at the start. I think that's what it was. They were giving them out for free.
Were they knowingly giving them the seeds, knowing it would fuck up their soil?
It's pretty much, there is a company beginning with M, and they've done a lot of damage in America as well. They knowingly polluted the waterways, and it made a lot of.
Oh fuck, that's not good.
There's this company is like. I'll have to look it up afterwards, but there is a company beginning with M that, in terms of environmental damage and therefore damage to people's livelihoods and health, have knowingly done a lot of damage on a massive scale. And I know that there's this Indian woman who Russell Brand refers to a lot, and she's talked to him a couple of times on the podcast, and she's very well known sort of in the environmental movement in India. And she's talked a lot about multinational companies pushing these seeds that over time do degrade the land. Now, this woman, I don't completely agree with, and I think there's aspects of it that obviously we don't know, but there seems to be, like, in terms of, because this statement says about plant genetic resources, I think that is a key aspect of it, is actually the genetics of the seeds that are growing. There is clear intentional exploitation going on in some places.
That may be true. I really need to look into that. I mean,
yeah,
I doubt it, because for me it doesn't make sense for these companies to like purposely try to fuck up other people's soil, because like surely that's just going to fuck them up in the long run as well, right?
Well, I don't
know. What's the motive behind this?
Well, because no, they're not. That's not their purpose. Obviously, the purpose is to make money. And these plants, they grow quickly, and they can sell them very cheaply. But they know the downsides of it. I guess it's like, I'm sure that I can't think of an example right now, but there's companies that know the downsides of something, but they'll sell it off anyway because they're not thinking of the long term of like when the people find out. They want to sell it, and yeah, like certain drugs, or if you, I don't know. I'm trying to think of, there's certain products that have downsides to them. I'm trying to think of an example. I guess it's like think of like shit food, or like the tobacco company, a perfect example. Like they knew for years, like for decades, that tobacco was
they knew for a long time. They were trying to purposely fund research that showed smoking was actually good for you, and they flooded the media with like sports people being like, hey, to bat a home run, I smoke a cigarette every 5 seconds.
Exactly. So when you look at them, you go, well, why would they do that? Because then they're killing off their customer base. Whereas if you say there are some dangers, but smoke in moderation, then you'll have people smoking for generations. So I think that it's that sort of mindset. It's not that they're going out trying to, just to kill people off like some mass murderers. They want to sell a product, and they're downplaying the risks. But they know full well the risks. I think it's more that's happening with these companies.
So which way are you going on this?
So because it's such a broad statement, and because I don't agree that all multinational companies obviously are doing this, and I think part of the problem I have with this Indian woman, I've forgotten her name, is that she seems to tar these multinational companies all with the same brush, and she's really anti-Bill Gates, thinking that he's just doing it just to make a profit and that he's not doing it for philanthropic reasons and stuff. And I disagree.
I mean, that dude's got enough money already, surely, right?
Yeah, and his whole life has been, most of his life has been devoted to trying to help the poor. So it just doesn't make sense to me. But so I would say agree, because it says they are unethically exploiting, and that is happening, but it's not happening everywhere, and it's not all companies that are selling seeds. So yeah, I would say agree.
So for me, I'm going to go on a soft disagree.
Mm-hmm.
The rationale being, I'm sure it does happen on I'm sure it's like greater than zero, right? But just because when I've looked into, like, I referenced the cocoa bean and the coffee bean industries, I see the benefits for all parties in general. I just think, is this a big problem? Probably not, at least not from what I've read.
Fair enough. And clearly both of us would probably need to do a bit more research before we can...
Yeah, I'm not an expert on this by any means. If you're listening to this and you know loads about it, comment below, because I don't know jack shit.
Yes, yeah, same here. Cool, okay. So next question, number 51. Making peace with the establishment is an important aspect of maturity. Making peace with the establishment is an important aspect of maturity. Nick Twigger.
So, fucking hell, that's a loaded statement. For me, that's like strong disagree, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think making peace means to accept something, right? And so to make peace with the establishment is to accept the establishment. And whilst I'm not like, I don't want to come across like full-on anti-establishment, I do believe in that it's necessary to have an establishment, to have government, and to have commerce and all these things. They can certainly do a lot of dumb shit, which you have to contest and be like, no, that's not cool. Especially when it gets into like really strict authoritarian measures. You know, we've seen this in many places in the past history, and like it's also as well that if we say the establishment is the state, which is kind of how I'm taking this,
sure,
the state has always been guilty of the worst atrocities in mankind.
Mm-hmm.
Like you look at Mao, you look at Pinochet, you look at Hitler, all these people, total dickheads, caused Kim Jong-un or him or whichever fat motherfucker's in power in North Korea right now, who's basically committing a Holocaust there, with mass famine.
Yeah. So
I don't agree that you should make peace with the establishment. I think you should question and critique the establishment persistently. So we're both from the UK, and we've got an incident now where the Prime Minister of the country, who imposed the laws of lockdown onto people, and people were getting fined, and the police were going around being arseholes to everyone, he was himself breaking his own COVID restrictions that he put in place. And it's like, I'm not making peace with that. Dude, you're a total hypocrite. I mean, I know all these people are hypocrites anyway, but I could not be any more against this. So for me, strongly disagree.
Wow, okay. I guess it rests on the sort of idea of the word peace. You said sort of peace is accepting something. I would say it's a bit different. I would say it's more, in this context, I'm reading it more as like, because I think I agree with this statement.
Ooh.
Yeah, because so with peace, I'm seeing it like, let's say you and me disagree about something, which we do often, but let's say we started getting really angry about it, and it actually started to affect our friendship, and then we were stopped talking to each other, blah blah blah. Making the peace would be establishing that friendship, understanding each other, but still not agreeing, still going, that's your view, that's my view, and still challenging each other when we hear something that we don't agree with, or they're doing something we don't agree with. But for me, that's how I read it. So I think
it's interesting that we both broke this down in a different way, and we think of something different when it comes to making peace with.
Yeah. And I think we also like to disagree with each other. So I think if you'd fallen on the other side, maybe I would have done it the other way. I don't know. But I think as well, this has been, we bring our own biases and our own experiences to these questions and these beliefs. And I think a part of me, a few years ago, not that long ago, maybe four years ago, and 4 or 5 years ago, I was a lot more anti-establishment, and over time I have started to really understand different parts of the establishment in quotation marks, whether it is the state or established systems within the free market as well, and established systems of or even established cultures, or cultural norms. I was very much like more on the side of like not anarchic. I was never an anarchist, but more on the side of sort of throw these out. We need to start afresh. We need to make everything better. But I see now that the amount of good that these establishments do, and we just need to improve them. So that's been a journey for me, and that's why I think it resonates with me more.
It's interesting that we've both gone on two different journeys here, because you very much used to be much more on the anti-establishment phase. I think I used to be much more like on board with it, and as I grow older, I'm just turning more and more into a fucking hippie. Because I was very much. I used to think I was right wing, although in hindsight, I've always been a centrist. But I was very much like, pro democracy. All these things are good. You've got to believe in the government. But the older I get, the older I just think there's so many stupid fucking things that go on, especially with government. Like I don't think any of us have ever been anarchists, and I certainly don't believe zero establishment is a good idea. If we start afresh, we'd likely just have a similar thing take hold immediately afterwards, once the dust had settled. So,
well, a lot worse.
There is, that could go in so many different directions, right? Who knows where it would go? Again, for me, this is a strong disagree. For me, if you made peace with someone passing away, it's like you're accepting of it. So to me, this is a strongly disagree, because I don't even think of myself as an anti-establishment kind of person. I do believe, you need rules, you need laws. Annoyingly, you need police. But you also need these people to not get too ahead of themselves and start acting like cunts. So for me, the way you do that is constant critique, constant what are you doing, constant keeping an eyeglass over them and making sure they're being as transparent as they possibly can. I'm just rambling now.
I almost I don't even know what establishment really is, but I'm not pro-establishment. And I think we're pretty much on the same page, because I completely agree. You need to critique any form of power all the time. It needs to be in place. But part of the critique is democracy and the votings we got set up and the media, free media we have. And I see that as different parts of the establishment. Again, it's down to how you define the establishment. But so if we compare ourselves, so the UK to China, so the establishment we got set up here is you can vote, every 4 years. There's by-elections, there's other stuff, but generally it's a democracy that you can vote in. And compared to most other countries in the world, it's a very fair democratic system.
In terms of the whole planet right now, like our version of democracy is much better than most.
Yeah. We also have a free media, which is a key part of that, and that's an establishment. In China, they don't have the right to really vote, and if they do, it's just it's a fake. It's not real.
It's like no one's voting Xi Jinping out of China anytime fucking soon.
Yes, exactly. And they also don't have a free media. Everything is censored. Everything is gated. So I think in that sense, it's like the establishment we have here is set up for critique. Do you know what I mean? So I think, again, it's playing with definitions, but
it is like the problem is here. I have a very low opinion of our media in general, more so with America, but also with us. You can see I think the idea is that the media, the news, is as unbiased as they possibly can be. And then they just report the facts, right? That's the high level idea, but that's a million miles away from the reality. When you see the way headlines are worded, I think humans call it negative bias. they'll skew everything in a negative bias because that makes people more likely to read or to view their content. So then I get some more money in the long run. Don't get me wrong, I do wholly believe in free media, but we've definitely got an issue right now in the West where generally I find especially people of my age group are very, very distrusting of the media.
Sure. And actually, this either already is or will be in a podcast coming up, because this is something I'm chatting about with someone else. But yes, so I do agree with that. There's a lot of problems with the media. But okay, let's. So you're sticking with strongly disagree with this, yeah?
Yeah, I'm going strongly disagree.
Cool, and I'm going to stick with agree. So yeah, cool. Right. So now it's a new section. So that last section. The next one. Yeah. So the last section was about wider society, and then it says, if you got through that, okay, you'll find these propositions on religion a breeze. So this is going to be religion and faith, I guess. I think we're pretty close generally on this, but it'll be interesting to see where we stand. Okay, first question, 52. Astrology accurately explains many things. Strongly disagree, agree, or strongly agree. Do you know what astrology is?
So that's like the stars and your birth sign and
that's my
how that relates to you as a human being, right?
Yes, I think that's what it is.
Okay, so generally I kind of class a lot of that stuff as bullshit.
Uh-huh.
Like there might be some stuff in it. So you're not that much of
a hippie yet then?
Well, the thing is, there might be some stuff in it. Well, no, I haven't gone that far over the edge yet. I haven't jumped just yet. At the same time, there are certain things I see in astrology which directly relate to humans. For example, the female period, that lasts about a month approximately, which just happens to coincide with the cycle of the moon. And to be honest, my girlfriend will probably hate me saying this, but my girlfriend ovulates when it's a full moon, and I'm just like, well, surely there's something going on there, right? That can't just be a fucking coincidence.
She goes in her period when there's a full moon.
No. She ovulates when it's a full moon.
That should be like in a horror film or something, like a sign.
Why would that be in a horror film?
Because it's like a sign of a witch, or I can imagine back in the day, they're just like, the full moon is such a ominous thing, isn't it? The werewolves coming out, and well, that's the only thing I can think of. I mean,
wow, it's so scary, man. Werewolves and witches. I do. The thing is, I do think there is something to humans and our place in the universe, and the stars are a part of that.
Yeah.
It's like, when you hear people say, oh no, I'm an Aries, so I get quite fiery. It's like, yo, you don't talk like that if you're fiery. Shut the fuck up.
Some people their first criteria for dating will be the star sign of the other person.
Oh, those people don't exist.
Those people definitely exist.
So you're telling me, but you've met people who are like, the first thing when I meet someone new, to know if I'm going to get well with them or not, is their fucking star sign. Basically, the month they were born.
In the context of dating, yes.
So these people, they're not doing well in life, huh?
But yeah,
I can't believe people like that really exist.
Yeah.
Like, if I was on a date with a girl and she was like, oh, hey, so I really need to know, it's make or break, what's your star sign? I'd be like, you know what, it's not going to work, don't worry about it.
I think one of you would have clocked before it got to the date stage that if that's what this person believed, then there clearly would be no compatibility before you even had to mention it. But no, that I have heard, people say that, or very similar things, that it is at least near the very top of their priorities.
Fucking hell. Yeah. I feel like they're the kind of people who have like dream catchers above their doors.
I'm now looking at a dream catcher in my window.
I'm pretty sure my girlfriend has a dream catcher in her study as well.
This one is more sentimental because I had, when I was a kid, I watched this comedy film called Dracula, Dead and Loving It, and it had Leslie Nielsen in, who the actor out of The Naked Gun and Airplane.
Oh, yeah, I know that he's got very white hair.
Yes, yeah, really funny guy. And I I was very young and I watched this film and it was supposed to be a comedy, and but I just found it so scary. And there was one scene which, looking back on it, is funny, but there was one scene where he flies in through the window, as a bat, and then he turns into to Dracula, and he's leaning over this like woman who's lying there. And this is like a film from the 80s, early 90s, so the comedy is very, just light and whatever. But and he leans in, he's going to suck her blood, and then when he's sucking her blood, it's like the end of like a McDonald's like drink, and it's like slurping. It's just a little gag, but that scared me so much, and I basically for at least 2 years I had very consistent nightmares about a Dracula vampire coming into my room in the middle of the night, sucking my blood. I would have like a consistent dream as well, where this was maybe during the second year of having them, where I would be in a normal dream, and if we were chatting right now in a cafe or whatever, suddenly everyone would turn into a vampire, and then try and suck my blood. And it was I had this, and we tried loads of stuff. We tried me drawing a picture of a vampire and then burning it. We did other things that you're supposed to do when you get bad dreams, and we got me a dream catcher. I mean, it didn't help, but I've got this dream catcher. My very long-winded way of saying yes, I still have this dream catcher that didn't work.
It's cool. It's cool. There's a story behind it, and you're just like, well, yeah. What else is going to catch my dream? So I think for me, this is going to be like a soft disagree. Like at first, I was trying to like play devil's advocate and be like, but there's loads of things you can tell about, physics and the way things move and gravity. And then I was like, but that's astrology. No, totally different. No, that's astronomy. Rather.
Yes, they're easily confused. Yeah, I mean, I do agree with you as well. There is stuff to be said in some ways, and yeah, I mean, even horoscopes, like they are true in some sense, in the sense.
Oh, fucking hell!
No, they're true in the sense of like they're advice for everyone, and they're good advice that anyone can take. If you read a horoscope
it's not a horoscope's not advice. A horoscope is, hey, here's what's going to happen, and it's normally like this really ambiguous thing.
It's usually advice, though. It's like, this is what's going to happen. You're going to have.
No, it's like, oh, you're going to meet your true love.
It's not. I think it's the more sort of daily horoscopes that you'll get in like the Metro or daily newspapers. They're much more vague because they have to be. Otherwise, people will be like, "Oh, that hasn't happened. That hasn't happened." They're much more like, your something will happen in your love life coming up soon. It'll be more that than you're going to find your true love. And yeah, take that opportunity.
But that's still not advice. That's still like a statement.
They do have a bit of advice in as well. It's sort of a mixture. But anyway, it's true in the sense that it's so vague that you're gonna connect it somehow, and it's
going to be the Texas sharpshooter fallacy, where it's like it's so ambiguous. It's inevitably it's going to relate to something if you apply meaning to it.
Is the Texas sharpshooter where you
fallacy?
Is that
so? The metaphor behind it is like, if you imagine you got like a sharpshooter and he's just shooting randomly at a wall. You'll get like, clusters of bullet holes that are close together, some of them sparse out. And then if you walk up to that wall, find where there's like very dense concentration of like bullet holes, and you paint a target there, you'll think, oh wow, look, that sharpshooter is really good. Right. But actually, no, he was just shooting randomly and then painting the target afterwards.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, exactly that. But yeah, I think I'm going to go with strongly disagree, just because I am very pro-science and I'm very anti these sort of vague notions, even though they seem harmless on the surface, I think it can really, not for everyone, but I think it's really got the danger of sending people down paths that can sometimes cost a lot of money, a lot of time, that doesn't help them at all. Whereas more scientifically proved methods of trying to help them and live a good life, I'm much more in favour of.
It can certainly open the door for people that are ripping you off. I think for me, it's a soft disagree. It's a soft disagree. I
think if it said astrology can help you in your life, then I would probably be like agree or soft disagree, because it says astrology accurately explains many things. That seems more like a scientific statement, like accurately explaining something. I want that. I don't at all see that as something like astrology.
Yeah, that's a good point. I don't think it accurately explains anything.
Mm.
Oh, yeah, it's got the word accurate. Yeah, I think you've swayed me. I'll go strong disagree.
Nice. I converted you away from astrology even more. Cool. Okay. Number 53. You cannot be moral without being religious.
This is immediately going to be a strong disagree for me. You can certainly have morals and ethics without being religious. You know, one of the 10 commandments is don't murder people, but you don't need to be a Christian or religious at all to know that murdering people randomly is not a good thing to do.
Mm. Yeah. I think this is going to be one we're completely on the same page about. It's been interesting though, because I've read more about the benefits of religion, and people like Jordan Peterson, and especially as someone called Jonathan Haidt, who wrote a book called The Righteous Mind, why good people are divided by religion and politics. I definitely recommend that book. They've really pointed out the positives, and I guess it's this whole it's similar to the whole establishment thing. It's like a lot of these religious practices are good for other reasons than you may think, and actually not having them could be worse for society. Like for example, communes. So I can't remember the exact stats, but they did a mass study on communes. And the communes that were, again, this isn't 100%, I'm just going vaguely, but the communes that were non-religious were like only, on average, only really lasted like 6 months or something, whereas the religious communes can last like generations. And it's just so much more. The overall takeaway is basically communes, when you don't have religiousness at the center of it, it's so difficult to keep it together, keep a society together.
I can see that. I do think there are benefits to religion, but the idea that you have to be religious to be moral, I don't see that at all. You can also be very religious and very immoral. So
what about the argument that Jordan Peterson says a lot, that it's just unconscious where you're getting your morals from, and actually your morals have been historically from religion. It's been religion, like for example Christianity, in this country,
mainly Christianity. Yeah.
So I mean, that's provided a moral foundation, and even though you aren't yourself, wouldn't call yourself religious, the moral foundation has been laid by religion. And therefore, you're actually sort of standing on the shoulders of religious people saying, I'm not religious.
I mean, I have no doubt that a lot of these things do come from religion. And, religion was much more popular in the past than it is now. We're probably at an all-time low in terms of, in the West anyway, and people believing in religion and whatnot. I've also heard a lot of stories about, there's a reason things prospered in the West, and that's because they followed Christianity so much more strictly. And, that's why the Middle East is a bit more further behind, because it mainly follows the Quran, although both books seem eerily similar to me and quite shit anyway. It doesn't surprise me that these things are built up over time. I have a feeling if I was brought up around the time where people owned slaves, I think I would probably, I don't know if I'd be against slavery because I would just be saturated in all the time. I would just be like, oh yeah, slaves. People have slaves, no biggie. But fortunately, I grew up post-slavery, and I look back at it and go, oh, that's really fucked up. But if I was at the time, would I own a slave? I mean, I fucking hope not, but who knows? That's a whole different version of me, right?
Mm-hmm. So what you're saying is just because historically there's been religious foundations maybe that might have influenced your morals today, that doesn't mean that you need religion today to have the morals you have.
No, yeah, not at all, not at all. I think you can be moral and ethical without religions. And I mean, you're repeating the argument that, but it's built up off a foundation of past religion. That could definitely be true. But for me, like, now this is like the next evolution of man. And the thing is, like, I don't class myself as not religious.
One sec, mate. Are you moving out about again, or?
No, I'm sitting totally still.
Oh, okay. They'll just that feedback is just yeah, that's fine. That's all good. Sorry, carry on.
What was I saying? Yeah, I mean, things were built up, like religion lasts a long time as well. Christianity's been going over 2,000 plus years. Judaism, I believe, is far longer than that.
Yeah.
Religion has its place. It's definitely beneficial for a lot of people. A lot of people need that faith in their life as well. One of my criticisms of the modern West is that now, when it comes to things that science can't explain, like essentially like life and death, and where did intelligence come from? What are you? What am I? And for these questions that science really doesn't have any answers to, people have now turned their back on religion, mostly because the Catholic Church was fucking a bunch of kids, which everyone's like, yep, they're definitely not the good guys. Yeah. So because of that, and because religion was so imposed on a lot of people for a long time, people then turn their back on that. People turn their back on religion as a whole, which I really think is the wrong way to go. I do think religion has its part. And I'm a fan. Like, I started, you probably don't know this, but in the last year or two, I got addicted to reading religious books.
Oh, really?
Like the Bible, the Quran. I've got the Tanakh, and I've read the Bhagavad Gita twice as well.
Wow, what's the Tanakh? Is that Sikh?
Say again?
What's the Tanakh?
No, the Tanakh is Judaism.
Oh,
I haven't read it. I've just got it. So the Torah is a book contained in the Tanakh. The Tanakh is 3 books. I'm pretty sure I could just grab it. I don't really want to move because I don't want to make any noise, but I could just turn around and check it out.
Yeah, that's fine.
So yeah, I do believe religion has its place in modern society, and if anything, I think it would be good if people did get more religious. Part of my rationale for this is people don't really have any way of dealing with death now. I think a lot of people, because the scientific view is very much that you live, you die. Once you die, that's it. That's the full stop to your life, no more. But like me personally, I don't agree with that. I don't think that makes any sense. Like, one of the fundamental principles in our world or our universe is that nothing is ever created nor destroyed. It's just transferred, its properties change, and it moves forwards. I can't remember what my point was. My point was, I think a lot of people in modern era really struggle with the concept of death, and I think that's because of a lack of religion,
right,
or a lack of faith.
Yeah. Do you think that so you think it's actually a more positive outlook on death or a more healthy outlook on death when you're religious?
Not necessarily, but yeah, generally speaking, yeah. I think a lot of people, they view death as, like, when you go to a funeral, it's not a celebration of someone's life, it's a mourning of their death. Like, you're celebrating the negative space, you're mourning the negative space instead of celebrating the time that they had. When my dad passed away a few years ago, something I found really odd was when he was in the coffin, he was fully dressed. And I remember asking my mum, why did we put Dad in clothes? And she was like, I don't know, it's just a dumb thing. And it kind of occurred to me that he's dressed so that he looks more like he's alive, so people can remember him as if he was still alive now, which isn't the case. Like, yeah, the body that he was in might still be here, all that physical matter might still be there, but that dude's not inside. And I just remember being so perplexed by it at the time, being like, what the fuck have we just dressed up a dead dude? But I think that comes to people holding on to the idea that people are still alive when in fact they're not alive, and it stops them from making peace and accepting that, look, this person's not in our life anymore, but you got to continue. No one wants everything to stop, not even the dead.
Thing is, I don't know if religion... Yeah, I mean, it's very complex. I mean, this is a whole another subject, isn't it, really? Is death and attitudes towards death. Because I think... Yeah, I think there's an aspect of sort of I guess mainstream religions that I would say is more unhealthy attitude towards death, of like after death you're gonna, all these fantasies and stuff, especially the sort of guilt, I guess more Catholic guilt of like heaven or hell, and repenting.
Well, that's just I always found the concept of heaven and hell kind of stupid. It's like this, whatever we're in right now is so much more fucking complex than you are good or bad. I don't know about you, but of all the people I've met in my life, I've only ever met one human being, and even this person I'm not certain about, but I've only ever met one human being where I was like, yo, this person really doesn't seem like a good person to me. Everyone else, they've got good parts, they've got bad parts. And the same is true on the opposite end of the scale. I've met a couple of people who I'm like, wow, you're a really good human being. Like, holy shit. But the vast majority of people are in that middle where they've got good qualities and bad qualities, and I'm included in that. So this idea that, like, hey, if you're good, you go to heaven. If you're bad, you go to hell. That concept is a stupid concept. I'm pretty sure it was created so that religion could help keep control of the general populace. So they're like, hey, listen to us. When you die, you'll do good. Go against us. When you die, you go to hell, motherfucker.
Yeah.
So religion's definitely, like, especially in like the last 500 years, or maybe 1,000 years, it's definitely done some fuck ups. But one of the most unfortunate things about religion, because it is, it's less, well, I'd say it's less scientifically proven, but the vast majority of science is not exact science in itself. Part of the problem with religion is it opens itself up to bad actors using it as a tool of control and power.
Yeah, and I completely agree with the whole thing of like the heaven and hell thing. I think was brought in as a control mechanism, and it was very, very effective. It's a very effective way of.
Well, do you know where the modern Bible comes from?
No.
So from what I've read online, I could be wrong about this, but from what I've read online, the modern Bible was created by Constantine, who was a Roman emperor who combined all these. He didn't write any of the books; he just combined all of these books. But he did that because in ancient Rome, they were, they would pray to different gods. They would pray to Jupiter. They would pray to Mars, and so if someone fell out with with the Church of Jupiter, they'd be like, well, fuck that, I'm going to go pray to Mars instead then, assholes, goodbye. So what he did was he went, now there's only one God, and he speaks through me, so fucking listen to me, assholes, I'm the emperor.
So that was how the Bible was made, was basically to bring different factions together under one roof.
It was to consolidate power in ancient Rome. From what I've read, I mean, don't get me wrong, a lot of these texts were legitimate texts, but I also think it's quite clear to see. I haven't read the whole Bible because it's fucking massive, but there's clear-cut things in the Bible where you're like, well, that was fucking added in afterwards. Someone's just thrown that in there to make their own point.
Yeah, it's amazing that you've read it twice.
No, not the. I haven't even read the Bible in its entirety. The Bible is fucking massive compared to like the Quran. I've read the Bhagavad Gita twice.
Oh wow! What did you think of the Bhagavad Gita?
I mean, I was mentioning this to a friend of mine, and he totally disagreed. But after reading, maybe I've read a fifth of the total Bible, and
Mm.
I'm pretty sure I've read like around two-thirds, three-quarters of the Quran.
Mm.
Um, but with the Bible and with the Quran, these are a collection of stories. Some are cool, some are bad, but the whole thing in general is pretty incoherent. The whole
Right.
thing is just like, it's like the Bible, for example. It says love thy neighbor, and then they've got passages later on about slavery, and it's like, well, that's not really loving your neighbor, is it? So how the fuck does this work?
Mm.
Whereas I really enjoyed the Bhagavad Gita because the Bhagavad Gita is essentially it's spoiler alert. It's essentially a battle is about to take place, and you have this guy, there's this mortal called Arjuna, and he's just like, well, what the fuck is going on with this battle? It's a massive battle. And then the divine one, Krishna, comes down to kind of talk to him about it and guide him through life and explain some things from like the divine one's perspective, like the eternal one, the
Mm.
one God above all gods that is
Mm.
everything in all of us. And it's like, as you read through it, it's entirely cohesive.
Mm.
It may have very minor hypocrisies in it, but nothing anywhere near on the scale of that of the Bible, or that of the Quran or the Bible.
Mm. Yeah, it's really interesting because like I know people who are very I know like Jehovah's Witnesses who are very much the Bible is like more than probably any other Christian faction. I mean, they wouldn't even call themselves Christians, but they it's so much on the every word of the Bible, and it's very much devout to the Bible is the center of it. Whereas like I know you could say that's all of Christianity, but like Catholicism seems to be more around Mary, the symbol of Mary, and then Catholic Church is maybe more Jesus. I'm not sure, but the Bible as a whole and the book and the text is very much it, and it's and the way I sort of view it, and even when Jordan Peterson's talking about the Bible and stuff, is for me it's just a book review. It's like when religious people talk about the Bible, it's like this because they see it as the word of God. They see it as this unbelievable thing that you can't even touch properly. And Jordan Peterson like does studies about it. And for me, it's just like it's a book. It's a book, and yeah, it's what you place on it. I guess it's what you impose on your own.
Yeah, there's a lot like that's down to interpretation, and that's
Mm.
true in the Bhagavad Gita as well. But
Mm.
the Bhagavad Gita also has some pretty clear-cut concepts in it, where it's like, hey, do good for others without wanting anything in return. Where it's
Mm.
just like stuff like that to me is like, that's just generally a really good way to go.
Mm.
My biggest issue with the Bible, and this is true for the Quran as well, is like there are some legitimately incredible stories in there that like I think do give a lot of teachings, a lot of purpose.
Mm.
But there's also so much bullshit and so much hypocrisy in it. It's like trying to make sense. Like it doesn't surprise me that the Catholic Church ended up fucking a bunch of kids because the Bible is so confusing in general in its entirety.
Mm. Yeah, and I think a lot of these religions, the it, and well, religious people is hinging on what their religious text is. Like, it's what do you view it as? Because the thing is, if you interpret it, you can interpret it in many different ways. And if you're viewing it as this is actually the word of God, and this is how to live my life, and this is the way, um, then yeah, I don't know where I'm going with this, but um, yeah, I think that seems to be the crux of it. Really, is the difference between religious people and non-religious people is what they impose on that book. That seems to be the source of it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm quite critical of the Bible and the Quran for the reasons I stated previously. At the same time, there is like there is certainly something in them, and the reason I'm certain of that is because these books, like the Tanakh, the Bible, and the Quran, they all share the same characters. It's like the angel Gabriel is in both the Quran and the Bible.
Right.
And I just think like, what's the fucking chances of that happening?
Mm.
So and there's also like the Book of Enoch isn't in the Bible, but the Book of Enoch, it was like a bunch of old scripts that were left out for some reason. But there's tons of like interesting things about that, especially. I started taking a lot of magic mushrooms in the last year or so, and there's certain things that are described where you go, huh, I've kind of seen, like when you read it, it's nonsensical. But then if you take shrooms, there's certain things that happen where you go, huh, I'm pretty sure I've fucking seen that before.
As in, it's got a deeper meaning, or you just mean you just made a connection because because the religious texts are so similar?
I'm talking about like they'll describe something, and it'll describe something as like the way it's kind of described is almost as if it's folding in on itself, and it's like when I've taken shrooms in the past, like I've seen things like that happen. Which I know there's this big I think they call it the Stone Ape Theory, that modern humans accelerated so quickly because they were taking psychedelics. I don't know how true that is, but to me there's a lot they have in conjunction, like psychedelics and religion. They're two circles that overlap in our world for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the spirituality would probably be the word in the middle of the Venn diagram, wouldn't it? Of drug taking and religion. But I mean, for me, it's like you can get that experience with anything. I think it's when you start reading a text, any text really, especially fiction, where it's a bit more vague, then you can just read it, and especially if you've taken mushrooms or you're just looking for meaning, then you can be like, wow, this is everything. This is the word of God, like, Shakespeare or whatever. So I think that's where I fall on it. But yeah, I think maybe if we wrap it up there, this sort of, because it is such a huge discussion, and
there's we've gone way far off the question.
So many avenues we can go down. So you cannot be moral without being religious.
It's a strongly disagree from me.
I think it's the same from me. Cool. Okay. Charity is better than social security as a means of helping the genuinely disadvantaged. Now, this is a very, very interesting one to me. Charity is better than social security. So social security in this country is called, I guess, welfare or benefit system, or charity is better than social security as a means of helping the genuinely disadvantaged. Do you have any thoughts? Do you want me to go first?
I do have thoughts on it. My initial thoughts and disagree or strongly disagree. The reason being, like, social security has been proven quite effective, especially in countries like Norway, where because they made so much money from oil, they didn't privatize that, it's all socialized. So then all of the profits from that get put back into the economy, get put back into education, get put back into
health,
welfare for people who are generally struggling. And I think that's fucking awesome. When I look at the flip side of this, when I look like, places like America where welfare is very low, but they do have like homelessness charities and whatnot, there's still like, I don't know if you've ever heard of a website called Quora. It's the thing where people can ask questions and people can put answers to them. But I read a lot of questions on Quora where there's people saying like, hey, what was your biggest surprise about America when you moved over there as a foreign national? And there's a lot of comments on there saying like, honestly, the amount of fucking poverty over there, the amount of homeless people.
I've heard the same thing. Yeah.
And I know that they do have charities for it, but it just doesn't seem to be doing anything. It's like barely a dent in the water. Dent in the water? What the fuck am I about?
You order water at a restaurant. Sorry, there's a lot of dents in this water.
No,
it's called ice.
Water dent free.
Okay. Yeah. That's very surprising to me, because I think actually in this political compass quiz previously we've talked about sort of, I think we've touched on welfare or benefits, and I think, I mean, probably am mischaracterizing you, but I feel like you were more on the side of like the benefit system doesn't really help people that much, or have I got that completely wrong?
I mean, it's difficult because it's heavily dependent on country, right?
Mm.
Like, as I said, Norway's benefit system is fantastic. If you're a Norwegian citizen and you find yourself homeless, the state will then provide you a home to live in, so at least you're not out in the open and you can get a job and get back on your feet. And that to me is incredible because they essentially have zero homelessness. I have two friends who I work with who are Norwegian, and I asked because I live in Newcastle city centre and I see quite a few, like not a massive amount, but I do see homeless. Like, you walk down through the city centre, you do see homeless people. And I said, like, yo, do you guys get like homeless people in Norway? And they were like, not really. You do see them occasionally, but they're generally foreigners who have come to Norway. Like, you don't see a Norwegian person homeless on the streets because they would just be, the state would provide shelter for them, which is fantastic. You have that to a lesser degree here, where I think if you're struggling, what am I trying to say here? If you're struggling, I think you can get like a welfare check here, but I don't really think it's very much money at all. Certainly not enough to live on, and it's certainly not enough to lift people out of poverty. Like, I see the same homeless people in the streets that I've seen, for the last like 2.5 years, basically since I've lived here.
So you generally do agree with the welfare state, basically, is what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, it's not an easy one because you do also run into the issue of if you have a welfare state, people will take advantage of it, and that's true. No matter what welfare you have in place, like, if I hate to say, I know people who have taken advantage of our welfare state and have just like rinsed it for all they can. But I think generally, like when I think of my taxes, what I'm cool for my taxes going towards, I'm happy to pay a little bit more so that people can have a safety net in case things really fuck up.
Wow, yeah, I think we're pretty much on the exact same page with everything you've said. Yeah, I think, I don't know whether I've just misremembered our previous chats about it, or whether you've changed your opinion over the last year or maybe two whenever we chatted about it. But yeah, I think I completely agree. I think yeah.
Have you heard of I've heard it described as two ways. One is the negative income tax, and the other way is universal basic income. Have you heard of this, where you essentially give like everyone $1,000 a month, but then if you've got a job, all of that money would just get deducted in your tax?
Yes, yeah, I have heard this. Andrew Yang in America made it more a mainstream idea. Have you heard of Andrew Yang?
No.
Yeah, he for my money should be the next president of the United States. He's the best person. But he's not going on about that now. He's now going on about more about the polarization. He actually created his own political party called the Forward Party, and it's like not right, not left, forward type thing. I would check him out. I think you might really find him interesting. But yeah, I have heard of this. I'm still waiting for solid data that's more robust to come in about it. I don't really have a strong opinion about universal basic income.
Well, the thing is, I'm pretty sure. Like, don't get me wrong, there are benefits to not having a safety net as well. I could totally see that, but I'm pretty sure there's a state in America where they already do this. I think it's Alaska.
Yes, you're right. I think you're right. Yeah.
Problem is, no one wants to live there because it's too fucking cold.
I think, yeah, I completely agree with you about the welfare state. I think it's interesting because the whole charity thing, I was chatting with a friend of mine who lives in Germany, and his girlfriend's German and he speaks German. And we were talking about charity, and America in terms of charity, like not just giving to charity, but like charity work that happens overseas, charitable like gestures, like helping people. America is very near the top of the list in the whole world. It's a very, very, very charitable country by nearly every measure. But they don't have a welfare state that is very robust compared to, that they, in terms of comparing them to other high income countries, they're awful at the sort of security side of it, with the healthcare, and even stuff like maternity leave. They're the only rich country that don't give maternity leave as a standard any.
Oh wow.
A lot of companies do. It's sort of like healthcare. Like even though they don't have it as part of the state, a lot of companies will offer it as part of the package. They'll say you get healthcare with this job. You'll also get this much maternity leave. So, but it's still you can find yourself in a very, very difficult position very easily if your company isn't very good and you're not in a position where you can get in a good company. So I 100% don't want to be like that. And I feel like the UK is very much not directly in the middle, but in the middle between the very, very libertarian America and then the much more social security heavy and tax heavy Nordic countries and Scandinavian countries. And I much would rather be moving towards the Scandinavian countries in terms of I'm much willing to pay higher taxes. I'm much more willing. I think what is crucial is we have, if I was to be Prime Minister and I had to do just one thing that I would be spending money on, it would be generally social security in general, like, and that social, I mean, maybe too broad, but it's also social services because they're woefully underfunded. So yeah, I completely agree. But anyway, back to the charity point. So America is super charitable. The Nordic countries are not very charitable at all. And I was talking to, sorry, I'm just going around in circles, talking to my German friends, and they were saying Germany isn't actually that charitable. Like when my friend's German girlfriend came to live over here in England, she was very surprised how many charities there were, how charitable we were, how many, like, even stuff like Captain Tom Moore, it's just such a normal thing that every week there's a new, like, okay, we're fundraising for this now, children in need, it's Red Nose Day, it's we seem to be super charitable, but our social services are so much less robust than Germany. So I thought that was quite interesting. That where you see the state not being effective with helping people, we as a society rise up and make charities and try to do it on our own way. Just to play devil's advocate for a sec, because I know that you have a libertarian or very freedom streak to you. Do you not think definitely that having this go through, and I know you're very state critical and very wary and maybe a bit cynical, do you not think actually having many charities where you can choose, if you want to give to dementia, you want to give to cancer, you want to give to a homeless charity, there's plenty of homeless charities, even if you just want to focus on homelessness to choose from, is it not right that you, instead of giving this tax to the state where the state will mess it up, they're spending funds inefficiently, whereas if you feel like homelessness is a cause that is important to you, instead of paying more taxes, just give to homelessness charities, and then that it's going towards something that you believe in?
Yeah, no. My answer is no to that. The reason being, it's about the process. Not like I can give money to homeless charities, and there are homeless charities in Newcastle, but and I don't want to rip on them and say they're terrible. I know they do feed homeless people once every 2 weeks or whatever it is. Actually, I think it's every week on Thursdays. But it's like, that's such like a small dent on the water it's really not achieving much. What you need is something systemic, a systemic process that's like, hey, here's how we give people the safety net.
Yeah, I think I'm going to challenge you there because I think that's a very mischaracterization of charities, to be honest. Even homeless charities. Charities, in my opinion, even though I probably do disagree with this statement about charities being better, I think this is what's such an interesting thing for me because I'm very on the fence about it. But charities are arguably the best place to figure out this stuff because with the state, you've got all this politics polluting it. And you've got all these other things that they've got to be focusing on, like having parties at number 10 and all these things that, and the department. So the Department for Health is headed by an MP who's just chosen, almost at random. It was Matt Hancock and now it's Sajid Javid. It's like they don't really know about health. They haven't spent their whole life, working as a doctor. They're just, that whole system is just messed up, that you just get people who are politicians, are career politicians, who are heading a whole sort of...
Well, pretending. They're pretending they know what they're doing. They're pretending like they're doing a good job, and they're very formal, they're very official, and they're also very authoritarian when they talk.
Exactly. So these charities, I mean, I think you sort of saying that homeless charities will just give meals every week. Fair enough, that's what's happening locally, and fair enough, that's what usually happens with small charities that have a tiny income and it's all volunteers and that's all they can do. But charities like Shelter, Crisis, Centrepoint, these are 3 huge homeless charities, and I would be 100% going to them to figure out how to get rid of the homelessness problem, because they have so many departments. They have policy departments that are huge. So where they're lobbying government and they actually put together huge packages of policies that are going to help homelessness in the long run. They do all this stuff. They're doing housing first, which is I know Crisis are big on housing first, which was a policy that was inspired by a Finnish or Swedish scheme. So charities, I have to back up that actually these charities are, I would say, the best place to solve the problems in terms of their knowledge and what they want to do. But there's a reason that I'm not saying that charities, in the long run, they're the best ones to help people.
I think you make a good point that, hey, maybe the free market can solve this problem much better than the politicians, considering how fucked up the political situation.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that charities are much, much better and much more effective than I think you were saying.
Well, so the thing is, if I see what gets the best results in terms of this, it's got to be the Scandinavian countries like Norway, where it is state-driven.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not to knock charities. That's not to mock people who do spend their free time working for these charities, volunteering, donating. That's not to knock them at all. But if I look at the best examples of who gets the job done best, it is done by the governments of like Norway and... Okay, Norway's the only example I've got, but I've heard of like
Sweden, Finland, Denmark. Yeah.
And Denmark, yeah, you're right.
At this point, I completely agree with you, because thing is, I think charities are absolutely phenomenal. The ones
I could not agree more.
And they actually, any good charity that's worth its salt will say every year, it's a shame that we're still here. It's a shame that we still exist. Like, my partner worked for a homeless charity, and the CEO every year, when they had their, the big meeting or whatever, would say, another year, another disappointment of us still having to exist. And it's that, I think most good charities have that, is because they know the importance of the state, and they know that there's just a huge gap here. And that's why, like I say, in America, it's the most charitable country in the world, because it has to be. Because if the state's not providing, then people, out of the good nature of their heart, they will set up these things to go like, well, we have to help them somehow. So yes, I completely agree though. In the long term, we need to be building these strong social safety nets with via the government, because that is much more sustainable than relying on the goodwill of people just to give to these charities regularly enough. So
I think on this one, it's like, it's not a strong disagree. I think it's just like a disagree for me.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with your disagree. Yeah, I think it's disagree for me as well. Cool. Okay. So number 55. Some people are naturally unlucky. Oh, this is quite a philosophical one.
Yeah, I mean, so if I look at all the humans on planet Earth right now as the present, my reality, some of those were just born into situations where they're totally fucked. Like if you're born into North Korea, whew, you did not roll the good dice, my friend.
Yes, that is the worst dice you can roll.
Yeah, you rolled 2 ones.
Yeah, or that you rolled them off into a gutter, so you can't even see what was on the dice. Yes.
So I think my issue with this is, if we say, like, if I say I agree, which to an extent I do agree with this statement. A lot of people who don't realize how good their life is. Like if you live in the West, you by far, like in known history, you are by far living one of the best lives anyone could have ever lived. Really, you don't. You open it. People used to have to dig wells to get water, and there was mass famine. Now we have a tap that just you turn it on, and then basically an infinite amount of water comes out, so that you can shower, you can bathe, you can drink whatever you want. So whilst there undoubtedly some people in this planet right now were just born into situations where there was not really any win, there was not really any victory there to be had. If you're in the West, if you're in a developed nation, you've got a pretty fucking good life, and there's a lot you can do with it.
So you see it more as when it says naturally unlucky, you see it as like what people are born into type thing.
Yeah, I mean, if you're, if a 3-year-old child gets bone cancer, I don't think that child did anything to deserve that bone cancer. I think it just unfortunately got unlucky and got bone cancer.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think I saw it more as on a sort of like quirky level. You've seen it more as a wider monumental level. I think I saw it more as like some people fall over a lot, or some people we know are naturally very clumsy.
Oh, me? Yeah, I walk into walls all the fucking time. Oh man,
I didn't actually mean you, but fair enough.
Oh no, I mean, it's also, with me, I don't think if it's like I'm naturally unlucky or as I'm just naturally a fucking idiot. Like the other day, oh god, okay, I'll explain this story really quickly. You know how on most sofas you've got like a solid back bit, and then you've got like a cushion in front of that back bit?
Yeah.
Well, on my sofa, I do this thing where like I get like a bit of a run up and a jump, and I just like crash into the sofa cushions. It's really satisfying. And then in early January, I did that, but one of the back cushions had been taken off, so I just kind of like flew into the back of the hard sofa bit and gave myself a concussion. And it's like, well, that's not really me being unlucky as much as it is I'm a fucking idiot.
Yeah, that's brilliant. You gave yourself a concussion. Did you have to go to the hospital or anything?
No, a bunch of people asked me to, but I just like, I just wore sunglasses for about 2 weeks, rested up, didn't do any exercise.
Oh, did you realize immediately, like?
So my initial reaction was, oh fuck, this feels like a concussion. And then I was like, you know what? Maybe it's not a concussion. Maybe fine. And then the lights started to get really bright, and I was like, oh, for fuck's sake, you thick twat! God damn it! Now we can't deal with light very well.
So what did you do once you started to realize it probably was concussion?
I just like put a blanket over myself, sat in the dark for a while.
Oh, that's really funny. That's really funny. Sorry, that is
Oh,
so.
I started smoking. Actually, I did found it. Like, I'm not necessarily saying people should do this, but I find smoking some cannabis while you have a concussion relieves the symptoms instantly.
Maybe that should be an episode. We should do a recurring thing of like Dr. Nick.
I don't think anyone should listen to that feedback or that input.
We can get people calling in. So
Although it'd be
I've just been hit by a car. I think I've got concussion. Okay, what you need to do?
although it would be fun to do just like a hey, what do you do when you've got a sore throat? What do you do when you've got COVID? Because I've got remedies for all this shit.
Is it all smoke weed?
No, it's not. How dare you? How dare you make a mockery of this? Okay, we'll take COVID for example. I got COVID in August, and my solution to COVID was about 3 to 5 times a day. You make yourself a lemsip. You know what a lemsip is. You got the powder. You pour boiling water into it.
Yeah.
But you only pour the boiling water about 2/3 of the way up. The remaining third you fill with either some form of whiskey or brandy, and you have 3 to 5 of them a day, and you feel amazing. It helps deal with the symptoms of COVID, that's for sure.
Oh, we should definitely do a Dr. Nick recurring episodes on this podcast.
Well, it's cool as well because everyone's got their own little unique remedies. Like, oh, I like to put tea in my honey when I've got a sore throat and all this shit. So it'd be cool to get all that out.
Yeah. Yours is always alcohol or drugs to fix the problem.
Or yoga. I do a lot of yoga. Yoga's fucking sick too.
Nice. Yoga is fucking sick. Nice. Okay, so some people are naturally unlucky, and obviously some people are naturally fucking idiots.
Yeah, I mean, the latter is certainly 100% true. But for me, it's like a soft degree on the some people are naturally unlucky. What do you think?
I think based on what you were saying, I'd say there's a strong agree. But I think if it's sort of like a thing that people say as an excuse, then I would say a disagree. Whereas it's
because
like
it's very easy to fall into that victim mindset and to be like, oh, I'm naturally unlucky. There's nothing I can do.
Yeah, and I think it's dangerous. It's like self-fulfilling prophecy, isn't it? If you say you're unlucky, then you see all the ways that you can fall into an unlucky situation, and you end up actually moving towards it because that's just what you think you are. It's like if you say I'm not very intelligent or I'm not very funny. The more you believe that, the more that is going to be true, because you're not going to attempt to, let's say, be funny if you think that you're not a funny person. You don't want to risk, silence and jokes going flat. So therefore, you won't actually be funny. So yeah, I think on that individual level, when people are saying they're naturally unlucky, I think I disagree, but it's a really good point what you say. Like, I'm 100% believing that the I would say 90% of people's success, I mean, this is a very pulled out the air number, 90 to 95, maybe even higher, is based on luck. It's just the other small percentage that you have the power over. Yep,
would agree.
Nice. Okay, question. So number 56. It is important that my child's school instills religious values. So it is important that my child's school instills religious values.
So I think that's like a strong disagree for me. The reason being, there are some religious values that are good, though they're not necessarily that you need to connect to religion. But like I said earlier, don't murder people, don't lie. Those are good. But then there's so much in religion. There's certain religions where it's like you can't just blindly follow it. Treat thy mother and thy father with respect. But what if your parents are like total dickheads or abusive? Then a lot of the principles don't hold up to scrutiny. Also, I think it's important for a child to learn their own values based on their life experiences, because if you learn things just by going through life and doing things, making mistakes, learning, those ideas will cement in yourself and become one with you, and you'll be really close to those ideas. Whereas if you've just got a preacher telling you what to do, there's this, like, humans have this gut instinct to be like, well, how the fuck do you know this, asshole? As soon as you start blindly following things, you don't necessarily commit to the idea as much as you would if you learnt it on your own.
And even if you don't rebel against it, even if you do go along with it, at very least it damages your own sort of cognitive ability to be critical and discern right from wrong for yourself, and just use that mental faculty of like, well, what makes sense to me. If you're only sort of taking on what people are preaching to you, then you just become, you become a Nazi, or you become any other thing where you're just going along with, I mean, obviously that's a massively extreme example, but you're going along with something because someone's told you in a position of power, and that is a very dangerous mindset to be in.
Yep, I think for me it's a strong disagree. Like if a child wanted, it's so ambiguous. Like there's tons of different religions. Buddhists think differently to Hindus, who think differently to Christians. It's a strong disagree for me. That there are good things in religion, but the idea that a child has to be taught religious values is like, religious values doesn't even mean anything really. Not for me.
Yeah, I think I'm the same. I strongly disagree. And the two words that make me strongly disagree are, well, actually three: school, instills, and religious. I think school is a place you can sort of actually maybe just instills and religious. So you can sort of teach values at school, and the reason it wouldn't be instills is because it's good to teach them and say people about values and influence children to say like, this is a good way to live, but not like trying to really force it on them. And then religious, because like the question before, you don't have to be religious to have values and have morals. So I think we're on the same page with that one as well.
Nice. That's another page in the book. We're now on the final page.
We are. And the title is Finally, a Look at Sex. So, and follow that with your creepy laugh. Let's jump straight in. So, number 58. Sex outside marriage is usually immoral. Sex outside marriage.
I would disagree with that. I'm going to take a stab in the dark that we've both had in all of our sex outside of marriage.
I might be a virgin.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me, actually.
Why?
To be honest, one of the biggest problems with this is I just think marriage is kind of an outdated idea.
Mm-hmm.
Like I do this thing with people where when they try and convince me that I should get married, where I go, okay, explain to me what marriage is. And they either fall silent as if I should already know what it is, or they say like, oh, it's when you commit fully to someone. It's like, but I can commit fully to someone without signing a random bit of paper. Like this was a religious idea that, I don't know, it seems kind of, if you get married, if you ever do separate, it's just going to make that harder. Like I don't, in France, I do believe there are tax benefits to being married, but for us in the UK, I really just don't understand what the benefit of this is.
Okay, well, I'll play devil's advocate again, and it's from Jordan Peterson again. The marriage being just a bit of paper, he says that his words is like, anyone who thinks that, I can't remember what he says, but he said hadn't thought about it longer than 2 seconds or something. He basically puts you down massively from what you just said.
I haven't really put too much thought into it. It just does not make sense to me.
But he says marriage, to stand up in front of your friends and family, your nearest and dearest, and to devote your life to someone. That whole act of the wedding day and doing that, and the rituals around it are so monumental in really securing two people together, that is not just signing a bit of paper. It's the obviously this is assuming that you do a traditional marriage as opposed to like just going to a registry office, just you two. But he says the sort of all of that surrounds the wedding day, that is such a monumental thing to really hold people together tighter.
Yeah, and maybe some people do need that to keep them together, but like for me, I don't disagree with his logic. I am a fan of rituals myself, but for me, it's like I don't need that to dedicate my life to someone, to say, hey, I'm not going to cheat on you. I want to stay with you for forever. I just I don't. I can see why other people would see it as necessary, but me personally, I don't see it as necessary. Also, I'm gonna have to contest it. Actually, now I think about it and what he said, because he said like, oh no, that's a big deal on people staying together. But it's like, isn't there that statistic that like half of all marriages end in divorce?
Yeah.
So it's like not that successful.
Yeah.
But then I suppose the devil's advocate of that argument would be, right, but how many relationships outside of marriage last it? And I'm sure it's like a much, much smaller percentage than 50%.
Yeah, and it depends on the country as well. More traditional countries, there's much lower levels of I think more religious countries, there's much lower levels of divorce. So that's something to bear in mind. What about, again, playing devil's advocate? It says sex outside of marriage, because obviously this is focused on sex, but sex outside of marriage is usually immoral. So I see a lot of the problems in society, if not nearly all the problems in society, starting with a childhood and children not being brought up in the right way. And this isn't like in a rich household where they do tennis twice a week and they have, all these like millions of friends and a huge family. I just mean no abuse, no neglect, and some semblance of role models and some key support, at least in the first 3 years. So I'm not saying like, even though obviously we want every child to have the best possible upbringing, I'm just saying the basics of raising a healthy kid. So when you have sex outside of a marriage situation, then the possibility of having kids, obviously when you have sex, is higher than when you don't have sex. And then you're in a situation where you don't have a partner that is, again, I'm talking on a society level. The amount of people that have sex, how many of them are in a committed long-term relationship like you are, is very small. So the chances of that kid growing up in a very unstable environment is a lot higher if it's outside of a marriage situation. So I guess that would be a thing I'd put to you and go, on a society level, isn't it better that people, isn't that immoral that is why one of those, I guess, religious things are there, is to be like, sex should only be in a marriage because from sex usually comes kids, and therefore it's a much more stable situation for them to grow up in.
Going to disagree. I'm going to disagree because I know people who are, I know tons of people who are from married families, and some of them, I feel like no matter what, you grow up with something bugging you in your childhood, right? But a lot of people I knew who not necessarily have more issues than others, but had some like really annoying turmoil to deal with in their upbringing. That was specifically because the family were too religious. Like, man, I know one person who their parents ran, well, their parents are like really big in this like special church in Christianity. I say special church, it was really much more of a fucking cult, to the point where when she said she wanted to leave, they would like you had these like 70 40-year-old ladies turning up to her workplace, being like, "Oh, do you really want to leave? We don't want you to leave. You can't just leave." And it's just like, what the fuck? So the idea that growing up in religion makes you safer.
No. Sorry, let's forget religion for a sec. Growing up in a married household.
I mean, I certainly grew up in a married household, and my parents were very happy with each other. I generally had a good upbringing. The problem is, I really need to look to see if there's any data into that to see, like, well, the kids who grow up in non-married households or households. I'm pretty sure households with divorce, kids don't do too well in generally. I don't know how true that is, but I'm pretty sure I've heard that before. But again, half of all marriages end in divorce anyway. This is hard for me to answer because I don't know. I need to look at like a study done and see what the data says.
But even, I mean, we both can't see the studies, so I guess we're just talking of what we do know or think. But the divorce thing, I think, is another separate thing, because I think some people would say, well, divorce is also immoral. So just on the fact of like kids, if you have sex, you're much more likely to have a kid, and if you're not married, therefore, the proposition I put to you is, if a kid grows up in an unmarried situation, they would be much more at risk of having problems in their life than if they grew up in a married household.
Well, I think in terms of your first point, in terms of the idea that, if you have sex, you're more likely to have a child if you have sex other than not having sex, certainly. But like, and you must be aware of this as well, it's really easy to avoid having a child but also have sex. It's like there's so many options. You can monitor your cycle, you can wear a condom, your partner could be on the pill if they choose to. It's just like, it's really... Like,
you say that, I know someone who's had a child recently who has had a vasectomy.
Oh, fuck, I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah, and obviously all these other things, they lower the risk, but there's still the risk there, obviously.
There's still the risk there, but for me, that risk is relatively minuscule. I don't really know what happened with the vasectomy person. I thought that was... Imagine going through a fucking surgery where someone's taking a knife to your fucking nutsack, and then it doesn't work. Like, you turn up at that doctor's practice and be like, "What the fuck, dude? We had a deal."
It would sort of be a mix of like being outraged, but also like proud of how powerful your sperm is, of just being like, wow, I mean, maybe mine just breaks through any medical intervention.
What, so you think this guy's a fucking superhuman? And whilst the tubes should have been disconnected, his sperm just like figured out a way.
Always found a way. But yeah, I mean, I've forgotten what we were saying. What you were saying about just got a mind blank about about that we have so many different methods that we can stop having a kid. I mean, you say that, but then that's talking about us in rich countries.
I mean, yeah, that's very true. I'm sure developing nations don't have as many options. So maybe there it is. Oh, but then that's not more of like a sex outside marriage. That's just like, hey, if you ever have sex, you could very well end up with a child. And then it relates to the idea that the child's probably going to be safer in a marriage environment than a non-married environment. The thing is, on this one, I've kind of just got to go from my own personal experience.
Yeah.
And I generally haven't really found anything moral about having sex outside of wedlock.
Depends what kind of sex
Have you ever been like mid-sex? I mean, I don't think you've ever been married. Neither of us have. But have you ever been mid-sex and then been like, this isn't very moral?
Well, like I say, it depends what you're doing.
Anal. Anal is pretty foolproof. You could have anal sex, not produce a child, and that is like lock and key safe.
I love that. Just dead silence. And then anal. Okay.
If you want to be 100% certain that you don't want to have kids, but you do want to have sex, stick it in the pooper. That's definitely going to offend someone.
Yeah. Okay, so sex outside marriage. You're saying strongly disagree.
Yeah, strongly disagree. I don't see anything immoral about sex. Certainly not sex out of wedlock.
I would say disagree, not strongly disagree, just because there are social factors that I do understand why these things are in place. Cool. A same sex couple in a stable, loving relationship should not be excluded from the possibility of child adoption. Same sex couple, stable, loving relationship should not be excluded from the possibility of child adoption.
Should not. So this is essentially saying the gay couples who are in love and a happy and safe relationship should be allowed to have a children. Should be able to adopt a child.
Yes.
So yeah, I would agree with this. Yeah, I think I would strongly agree with this. I think there's, from what I've heard about people who've been quite close to the foster care system and out in this country, it's not particularly good. So, if there's more households open who want to open kids with loving arms and give them a chance at life, yeah, I think, why not? What's stopping them? The vast majority of me and my friends who I grew up with, we had, male and female parents, like the standard deal. And, sometimes that works out good. Sometimes that works out terribly. I don't see how, I guess part of the issue is like, if you're a girl and you have two dads, you kind of need like good female role models are useful. And also it's good to know like about your body and talk to someone about that. But that doesn't necessarily need to be like in one of your parents. That could be like your parents have like a close friend who you could talk to about it. So yeah, for me, I think this is a strong disagree.
A strong agree.
No, a strong agree. A strong agree. Oh gosh.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with this statement or you more. It's I was having this conversation with someone a little while ago, and they were saying, well, what about the whole? I don't know if they were playing devil's advocate or it was just their point of view, but they were saying similar thing to you, like having a man and a woman there's different strengths and weaknesses, and it's good to have a man and a woman. And I think in an ideal world, yes, it's maybe. I'm not even convinced about that, but I can definitely see why it's more preferable to have a man and a woman than to have two males or two women.
Yeah, I can see that.
But we do not live in that world, and I don't think we'll ever live in that world, because we live in a world where there are so many kids who need stability and love, which are the two things it says in this statement, which are so crucial for an upbringing. If there's people out there, no matter what their gender, even if they don't even identify with a gender, if they're non-binary or whatever, of any type, of any background, of any demographic, if they're stable, they're loving, they're good people, then that's where kids should be. 100%.
Yeah, if it's a choice between them having like no parents or two same-sex parents, I'm like, well, surely like the same sex are better than no parents and just being left at the will of the foster care system.
Exactly. Or even giving more credit to the other side, it's like, should they go to a quite an unstable and quite unloving male and female parents, or same sex? I would definitely go for the same sex if the same sex were more stable and loving. The benefits you get from having a male and a female for parents are, I think, very, very small compared to just having the fundamentals of stability and love, whatever gender that is.
I feel like this one's run its course. It's pretty shut and close.
Nice. Number 60, pornography, depicting consenting adults should be legal for the adult population. So pornography.
Well, I know which way you're going to go on this because you're a massive porn fiend. All of your history is just like porn. Some douchebaggy film no one's ever heard of. Porn.
What, that I've filmed porn?
No, like no, just like because you're quite an arty-farty kind of film guy, just some random film no one's ever heard of. Like, oh, I really like what they did with the framing in this scene, and then it's straight back to the hardcore porn, films, bukkake, people taking poos on their chests, that kind of shit.
I mean, I haven't
I
watched.
know you what you're
I
into.
haven't
You
watched any
sick
porn
fuck.
for like a year and a half, in all honesty. But
Really?
yes, and that's another subject. But yes,
Well, that's really. I don't know if I could do that.
yeah. Well, I'll put the gauntlet down.
Why did you stop watching porn?
Because I felt like I'd had this on-off relationship for quite a while with it. By the way, if any family are listening to this right now, feel free to turn it off. I'm going to be honest. I'm going to be honest. So it's on you. The disclaimer is there. I'm going to be very honest about my own stuff. So if you don't, if this is my grandma watching, or my mum listening, or my mum listening, just turn off now. Maybe that would be my advice. Anyway, I realized over the years I was having this real on-off relationship with it. I would give up porn, I'd think, what am I doing? This is not healthy for my brain. It's slowly installing an objectification of women and all these reasons. And then I'd give up porn, and then I'd be like, after a little while, I'd be like, oh, I wasn't watching any weird stuff, and I genuinely wasn't watching, like, some people, they say like, oh, it gets worse and worse. You get like, you start watching weirder and weirder and weirder stuff, and then you're like,
What's like the point where porn becomes weird?
I think, I don't know. I mean, it's a sliding scale. It's different for everyone, but
It's a gradient. But for me, it's like foot fetish porn. I'm just like, that's fucking weird, man.
yeah, fetish and like, yeah, I guess just like, yeah, when it starts to tip into immoral type stuff, where you could say like, well, if that seems like it was, yeah, it feels wrong, and it's then, but it depends on what it is, and we'd have to go through each example. But yeah, when you start to, I feel like the stuff I was looking at generally was pretty tame, to be honest, and it was mainly couples, just home movies. So it wasn't like anything weird, and I didn't connect with all the sort of stylized, like, I'm a plumber, and I'm American, and I look really buff, and oh my god, I got big tits.
Okay, I got you a pizza.
Yeah, exactly. All that sort. It didn't ring true. But anyway, so that would then go, well, why did I give up? I wasn't watching weird stuff. I wasn't getting like more and more like down a path with it. So then I'd go back to it, and I'd just do this over the course of many years, like giving up, then going back to it, giving up. And I realized over time, there was a lot of other stuff to it that I won't go into because it involves my partner. But I realized within myself that as a general point, I had an unhealthy relationship with porn. And I think I heard from a very wise friend of mine who has an addiction and I was on a 12-step program, that it's not the thing itself, it's the relationship to the thing. And that really has stuck with me. And I try to bring that into everything, when I'm thinking about my relationship with, my phone or substances, or, I mean, I don't take any drugs anymore, but, anything that you think could be an addictive problem. And we all have the addictive mindset. We all do, whether it's sugar or whatever. So I realized, well, and that coming to that realization then stopped in its tracks. And I saw it as like, I'm stopping because it's my relationship. And then since then, it's been nothing. I haven't had it since, because I've treated it as an addiction. Even though I wasn't addicted in the sense that I know addicts who, like, who it's very much, I call it a mini addiction. It's something that, like people who, scroll Instagram and things like that, it's not like ruining your life, but it's something that you feel is an unhealthy relationship. So
it's interesting you bring up Instagram, because I had to delete Instagram from my phone because I realized I was just constantly and infinitely scrolling through it on end, and I was like, "Yo, this is
Really?
just yeah, yeah." And I'd like, and I made the active thought like, "Okay, stop. You just keep the app on your phone, just to stop going to it." And then the next day, I was back on it, just endlessly flicking through it, and then I've been there for an hour, and I'll be like, "Oh fuck, what am I doing?" And I was like, "No, I got to delete this. I can't have this near me."
It's amazing, isn't it? You can think about stuff so rationally, and you can be like, this reason, this reason, this reason. You can sit down and think about all the reasons that you don't want to be on Instagram, or that you only want to look at it for like 5 minutes every day or whatever. And like you can be so like sure, and then your body just takes over, and you just find yourself. It's like you're woken up, and you're like, oh my god, what am I doing? And you're already in the middle of it after like half an hour or whatever. It's crazy how these things can just take over.
Yeah, I've got that issue at the moment with a video game that I play.
Mm,
I've played this video game since I was in university. It's called Dota 2. It's a good game, but each game takes about an hour, so it's a massive time sink. Realistically, it doesn't benefit my life from playing it, and I also get frustrated because the player base is a bit toxic at times, so that makes me agitated.
mm.
And I still keep going back to fucking play it. I've installed it so many times and reinstalled it so many times. It's like, God fucking damn it, Nick, just stop playing the damn game.
Yeah, yeah. So yes, that was just a little foray down addiction there. So yes, let's swing it back to the question or the
Is
statement.
porn okay
Should it
for?
should it be legal, basically, for the adult
Uh,
population?
so I would say strongly agree. But the thing is, whenever you make something illegal, but first of all, it's still going to be there anyway, right? Like heroin is illegal, weed is illegal in this country. You can still go out and get them, and so you can make it illegal, but it'll still be there. And then B, the issue is when you make something illegal, what then starts to come out is you make it much worse. During Prohibition in America, where alcohol was illegal, the alcohol you find would be far more higher strength. You have far higher addiction rates, far higher deaths linked to alcoholism. So Prohibition only ever makes, if there is a problem, which I don't even think there's a problem here, but Prohibition only ever makes problems worse, not better. For should porn depicting consenting adults be legal for the adult population? I believe yes. But first, well, I'm sure people watching porn at a young age does have its issues, but generally, I don't think it's that bad of an issue. But even if it was an issue, making it illegal is only going to make the problem worse. We've seen this with pretty much every prohibition in history. It just makes the issue worse. So, for example, the issue along like hundreds of years ago, America made alcohol illegal in the United States. And there was still alcohol. You could still get alcohol. So it was illegal, but you could still get it, no problem. And B, the alcohol you now had was far more potent, far more higher like volume percentage wise of the ethanol in the substance, in the liquid itself. So it was way more dangerous. You had far higher death rates because of it. You had far higher addiction rates to it. So all Prohibition ever does for me is, from what I've seen in history, is make the issue worse.
Yeah, and I think I disagree with you about the teen issue. I think it's a huge issue with teenagers personally.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think it's a massive issue. Like, what we're looking at with with sexual abuse and the way that women are treated worldwide, it throws a massive amount of fuel on the fire to have a young teenage mind looking at pornography, and I think it's a huge issue personally, but I do agree that I think the whole legal thing, same with drugs. I generally am for legalizing, but I'm open to other arguments. But I think I agree with you on this. It's the regulation thing that's the issue. As soon as you make it illegal, it's not regulated. At the moment, even though it's, it won't be that well regulated, if there's horrendous like pornography, like child pornography, for example, in this country, if that goes anywhere on a porn site that people can access, then that can be reported and taken down, and that can legally happen because there's some regulation around it in a legal sphere. Whereas if it's unregulated and it's all on the black market, or however you want to put it, then that stuff just mingles in with all the other stuff. In the drug sense, you get the stuff that's cut with awful chemicals that's going to kill you, along with the more clean stuff. Whereas if it's regulated, and the same with porn, you'll get so much more. There's disgusting, horrible, just absolutely
it's really unethical porn.
Yeah. So yeah, I think I'm the same as you. I won't go for a strong agree, but I will agree. Should be legal.
It's a strong agree for me, for sure.
Fair play. Cool. Okay. Only 3 questions away, and my phone is on a really low battery. I can't plug it in because it's in the same port as I've got you plugged in. So we're just going to soldier on and just hope for the best.
Yeah, I feel your pain. My phone is a little low, but it should persist for a while, yeah.
Okay, cool. What goes on in a private bedroom between consenting adults is no business of the state.
So
consenting adults.
So this wouldn't pertain to like someone getting beaten.
No, consenting adults.
This wouldn't pertain to domestic violence.
No. Let's assume, for the sake of this, when it's saying consenting adults, both are very, very happy with whatever they're doing in the bedroom.
Well, okay. Then strongly agree. I'm trying to play devil's advocate in my head. Like, well, what's the problem here? How is this even a question?
Yeah.
But I can't. Like, what could they be doing that you'd need a cop or a politician to be like, whoa, you can't be having bum fun in there?
Yeah, I'm trying to think as well.
I
think anything immoral that comes into my mind, it involves other people, or, yeah, in some way it involves other people.
But it's also consenting.
Huh?
It's like what goes on in a private bedroom between consenting adults. So it doesn't necessarily need to be a couple. It could be a bunch of, people having an orgy. I feel like we always try to play devil's advocate, which is good, and I'm trying to do that now, but I'm just like, I don't get it. What's the issue here? Why would the state need to be aware?
I think without having someone come, I mean, I'm sure there's a good example if anyone's got any, but yeah, I think it would take a while to come up with a good example, because yeah, I think we both strongly agree with this one.
Yeah, I don't really have anything to say on like the nuance of it. It's just like, nope, pretty clean cut for me.
I'm guessing it's talking about sex because it like.
This is private bedroom.
Because if you like took like heroin in a private, I know you agree with legalization of drugs, but I don't think that's what this question is saying. I think it's more any sexual act.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah.
Should we move on?
Yeah, I strongly agree. Okay. No one can feel naturally homosexual. Well, that's a strong disagree, isn't it?
So I'm always confused by things like this because there's always the argument like, is your sexual preference nature or is it nurture? So, I apply that question to myself and I go, well, am I straight because of my genetics or the way I was raised? Is it just something in me? And my answer always is the same, where I come to the conclusion that I really don't fucking know. It's just I'm into girls. That's just the way it is.
And that's the same with everything, really. I mean, everything is a combination of nature and nurture to a certain extent. Some things are much more than the other. I think intelligence is very genetically based, even though obviously you can influence that. And there's other factors that are much more nature based, and there's not very much in the genes that can influence it. So yeah, I imagine I don't think there's been much. I think it's fairly equal mix. What I understand about sexuality, I don't really know.
I mean, I don't know exactly. And it's, if this question was like everyone is naturally straight, I'd just be like, yeah, I don't know if that's true either. I don't know.
But it says no. The reason I think this is such an easy question to answer is because it says no one can feel.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. Like, I've got gay friends, and they're just like, yeah, it's just the way it is. It wasn't really a choice. I tried liking girls when I was younger, wasn't really into it, switched to men, way better. So yeah, I mean, I'm on the same lines as you. I strongly disagree with this.
Yeah.
I've met people who are pretty fucking certain they're naturally homosexual.
Yeah.
And it wasn't due to anything in their childhood or anything like that. So yeah, I've got to go with that one.
Yeah, for sure. And it's how they feel. And no one can say that otherwise, can they? They can't say, no, you don't feel like that. Yeah. So, okay. Last question. Well done, everyone. We've got to the last question. We've done it.
It only took us 2 fucking years.
Okay. 63. These days. Oh, sorry. These days.
Why did you put so much emphasis on these days?
These days, openness about sex has gone too far.
So I think this would be a strong disagree for me as well. For me, full transparency is the best way to go, and I don't see why. Like, I still think like sex is a kind of like taboo thing, which is bad for education. It's bad for knowledge, and I think people being shielded from people like who are like shielded from sex until their adulthood can end up growing up very confused and not really knowing how to deal with their feelings and their like urges.
Yeah, I think it's a strong disagree with me as well. I think the only devil advocate would just be saying the stuff I've already said about if you're promoting or talking about promiscuous sex too much, where it's outside of a secure relationship and you end up having kids and the kid can't get taken care of properly because the teenager's getting pregnant and they have to go into a foster home or they have to go into, not an orphanage, but a child care place. Then that is an issue. But I think it seems to be that sort of question again, I think is more coming from religious people. I think it's the sacredness of sex and it should be a married couple, it should be in the bedroom, it should be private. And I think I've never seen it as simple as that. It's so much hazy lines everywhere. And a spectrum of different things. It's not black and white. And I think, like you say, I completely agree. Like honesty, openness, I completely agree. It's more of a problem, the taboo around it, and the fact that, for example, I was saying about the teenage boys and the problem I think they have with their mindset about sex. If there's more openness about what sex really is, what female bodies really look like, how you actually treat someone you're attracted to, if there was more openness about that and the urges that you're going to inevitably get and how to deal with those urges, not to just act on them without thinking of the other person. If there was more openness around that, then we'd be in a better place. So I think restricting the openness, I think, would have a bad effect.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. And this whole idea that like, oh nah, sex is sacred. Like, I don't know if you've ever seen like 2 wild animals have sex, but you look at that and you go, that doesn't look that sacred to me. It's like sex, no matter what, as long as it's consensual, strictly as long as it's consensual, as a general rule, sex is really fucking fun. Orgasms are fun, the act of it is fun, the lead up to it is fun. It's just fun to be connected to another human being, sharing this experience you're going through with them. So the idea that like, oh no, it's sacred, you've got to like wear a nightgown and your husband's got to be blindfolded. It's like, what the fuck? Like, monkeys do this.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with a nightgown.
Do you have a nightgown?
I don't. I do have a pink dressing gown.
Pink Dressing gown.
Yeah.
I don't have a dressing gown. Full stop. Like I sleep naked.
Yeah. Well, this was my partner's dressing gown, but she got a new one, and Tyler Durden from Fight Club, Brad Pitt in Fight Club, is one of my favorite films, Fight Club. He wears a pink dressing.
Fantastic film.
Yeah.
Good book as well.
And he wears a pink dressing gown. So I was like, I'm going to keep this pink dressing gown because I haven't got a dressing gown. And
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Did you hear recently how we're going very off topic now? Did you hear recently how in China the ending to Fight Club is different?
I did see. I didn't actually look at the article, but I went over something like that. Scrolled over something about Fight Club in China. So
Yeah,
is it the corporations actually win or something?
No, yes. So it kind of ends with you don't have any of the final scene at all. You just have like a black screen with white text that says the authorities or the police found the plot quite quickly and just kind of quelled it, and none of the bombs went off.
Okay, spoiler alert for anyone who hasn't seen Fight Club. If you haven't seen it, go out and see it right now.
Well, I didn't. There's no spoilers. It's only the Chinese ending spoiler that I've spoiled, which is really doesn't make sense with any of the film.
No, but I was going to say the spoiler basically.
You're going to tell everyone what happens at Fight Club?
Well, I've said the spoiler alert, and if people haven't seen Fight Club, it's their own damn fault. But basically it ends with the main character and his sort of girlfriend holding hands while the buildings like all get exploded in front of them. It's a beautiful ending, one of the best endings of a film I've ever seen. So it's white text, and it's basically all been this plan building up to taking down these huge corporations. So just having it as they found out about their plan, and do you know at what point in the film that comes on?
I don't. I think it's just like the final scene where they're in the building at the top, and he's like, I think is he handcuffed to the chair?
Yeah.
I think it's just like, from what I've read, I don't know exactly, but I think it's just all of that bit that doesn't happen, and it's just like, nope, the police probably figured out the plot, stopped the bombs, and everyone's okay. Which is so stupid to me because the film itself is kind of anti-establishment, right?
The whole filming is, yeah.
Yeah, it's this whole idea of like, hey, society wants you to be one thing, but that's really, a lot of people struggle with that and what society wants them to be, and they want to be something different where there are no rules and they just get to be whatever they want to be, and they can punch each other and fuck each other up, and it's really not an issue. So then to have that as the ending is just like, what? Like if you were in China, if you were watching that ending, you just be sat there like, but what? This doesn't make sense. Nothing about it, that ending would add up.
It's actually quite poetic, and it almost actually plays into the Fight Club ethos, because it's like that would actually have been quite an interesting ending for it to happen in the film, because then it's almost like, it's like a meta like comment on the film itself, and it's saying like, anti-establishment, they're always trying to oppress us, and then the end of the film, instead of them being successful, the establishment has actually oppressed them, and it's more like, it's more saying like a comment on, look how much they can do. So yeah, I mean, that's just me from a very pretentious point of view.
Yeah, incredibly pretentious. I could not disagree with it. You were trying to play devil's advocate, and the whole time I was just listening to it, and I was thinking, shut the fuck up. How dare you? Fight Club is such an exceptional film. To have that as the fucking ending is total garbage.
Oh, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. Well, it's sort of like, I was just about to say a very pretentious film.
I mean, the thing is, I think you said Fight Club is one of your favorite films of all time. For me, I adore Fight Club. I rewatched it a few months ago with my girlfriend. It's one of those films as well. The more you watch it, the more these little details you see, and you go, "Oh shit, I never saw that." But it was like in plain view the whole time.
Yeah,
it's such a phenomenal film. I think a lot of people relate to this idea about wanting to be more explosive and wanting to be more masculine and wanting to just like get all of whatever's in you out and not have to go through this like restrictive society that, to an extent we do live in. So then to have the Chinese fucking government be like, well, that's not what we want for our citizens.
Yeah, it's very stupid. That's a ridiculous thing to do.
so stupid.
Just ban the film. Like, if you're gonna do it, just ban the film.
I mean, that's bad as well. It's like, did you know that in China, Winnie the Pooh is banned because people kept saying the president of China looks like Winnie the Pooh.
Oh yeah.
And it's just like at that point, it's like, dude, how tiny is your penis that you didn't like everyone joking about you looking like Winnie the Pooh, so you banned Winnie the Pooh? Like, come on, man. Bro, how old are you?
Yeah.
Stop taking yourself so fucking seriously, yeah?
Oh, it's fascinating. I am fascinated with China and Russia and these totalitarian states, but we're not going to get into all this now because that's another podcast. Because that is something I can talk about for a long time.
I feel like in this we've come up with a lot of ideas for podcasts.
Yes, definitely. So we've got Dr. Nick, we've got China,
Russia. We've got how governments run things, authoritarianism versus liberalism,
and the eternal question: when should the state get involved with two consenting adults having sex?
That's a very good question.
Yeah,
that's a very good. It's not two consenting adults. It just says between.
Yes,
consenting
that's
adults.
true. Consenting adults. Yes.
So it could just be like. I'm trying to think of what's the most outrageous thing that could be.
Oh, I've just thought of something.
All right, shoot.
I've just thought of something. Oh, but if they knew, I was going to say if one of them had AIDS.
Right.
And didn't tell the other one.
Well, but then they're not consenting.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Well, they'll consent to the sex, but they didn't consent to having sex with someone with AIDS. Yeah.
Right, but it says between consenting.
Yes. Yeah.
I suppose if you're deceiving the other person.
But that's a bit of a cheat, isn't it? Because then they're not consenting.
Yeah. I feel like this is more of a statement of. Should the state get involved if people aren't married but are having sex?
Okay, we'll have a think about that. If you think of anything, the winner is the first person to tell the other one on a message.
Come up with a legit reason for why.
Yeah, this is all I'm going to think about now.
I feel like we never answered the just to put a bow on this whole thing. These days, openness about sex has gone too far. Strongly disagree.
Yes, I strongly disagree as well. Yeah.
Well, that's everything. That's the whole. That's the whole thing. It only took us 2 fucking years.
We did it. We're free. We're free to talk about other things in the podcast and go off on tangents. But I've loved it. This has been really fun.
It is. It's always fun to talk with you, dude. I feel like whilst we it's not an issue of disagreement with people. It's only an issue if you take it to heart. And one of the fun things about these conversations that we have is neither of us attached to our ideas. We'll both listen to the other person, take it on board. But what about this? But what about that? And ultimately, no matter what's said, we're not going to fall out with each other. And that's one of the biggest things going on right now, where if you listen to a certain person or you have a certain view, you're an evil and a Nazi. And it's like, there's so much more nuance to life than everything being black and white.
For sure. Yeah. No, I love it, mate. I love chatting with you generally, but also on the podcast. And it's definitely won't be the last.
Oh, hell yeah, man. Always a pleasure.
All right. Nice one, man.
Bye-bye.